Accurate, diverse stories in the media are critically important. SRC Partners is a full-service cultural production firm. From development to market, we provide expertise on diversity and inclusivity. You will reach a much wider audience when they feel heard.
Hello to all of our viewers and our panel. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Maha Shalawi from Pass the Mic Media, and I'd like to thank our organizers, Non-Obvious, for creating this space, and SRC Partners for co-producing this conversation, Is Diversity Funny? How Comedians of Color Navigate a Sensitive Topic. I'm going to hand it over now to our moderator, comedian, writer, and activist, Mamoudou N'Diaye.
Thank you. So, welcome to the Non-Obvious Beyond Diversity Summit. My name is Mamoudou N'Diaye, TV, film writer, comedian, DJ, and I'm going to be your moderator today for this session titled, Is Diversity Funny? Where we answer once and for all, is diversity funny? By asking our wonderful panelists how they navigate sensitive topics using comedy. It is my honor to be speaking with our comedy panel today, which includes Joey Clift, who is a staff writer for Spirit Rangers on Netflix and the writer and director of a short film, Telling People You're a Native American When You're Not Native is a lot like telling a bear you're a bear when you're not a bear. Thank you so much, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The name of my short film is 24 words long, so props for getting it. You nailed it. It's looking great. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I always like talking about this stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Also on our panel, we have Elsa Waith, who's an instructor at Gold Comedy, teaching women of all kinds the art of stand-up comedy, who was also featured on This American Life and the New York Comedy Festival. What's up? How's Ira Glass doing these days?
He hasn't kept in touch with me.
Thanks for text?
No, I don't know. He's busy.
He's busy, yeah.
He's busy.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Also, we have Mike Brown, who is a correspondent on Full Frontal, Samantha Bee, has been seen on Comedy Central, Adult Swim, and this is very, very important to me and him. He is 6'3" with hazel eyes. Tell us about the hazel eyes. How's that work for you so far?
Feels good. Feels good to be here. For my eyes to be hazily. I did have more light hitting the eyes before this thing started, but I had to tone it down for you guys. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, right before this. I was like, yo, the eyes are just so hazel. I can't see.
Yo, I'm just trying to live with the blessings. You know what it is, man.
You're making it work. You're making it work. And last but not least, we got Zara Norbash, who is in Oprah magazine with a big O, invited to the other big O, Obama's White House, to record an episode of her podcast, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. How you doing, Zara?
I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
I am, no one's asked that. Thank you. Wonderfully.
Yeah, this whole panel.
Happy New President Days.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different day. It's a little bit brighter outside. I will say, as a pep in my step, I was skipping down the streets of Brooklyn the other day, so I'm feeling pretty good.
I do feel like 2021 has just now started. It's like offset, like the Chinese New Year.
Yeah,
like we couldn't start 2021 like officially until we had got all the trash.
Yeah,
from 2020 out.
Yeah. It felt like a Marvel where like the Capitol riots were like a end credit scene. Like this is what could happen. Yeah, but thank you so much to our organizer, the team, Non-Obvious Company. But also, I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. And before we begin, let's reflect on the history of Indigenous lands that we call home. And I know that we're all on a virtual platform right now, but all of us occupy spaces that carry the powerful legacy of these diverse peoples and their unique local cultures. Through this acknowledgement, we reaffirm a deep commitment to improving our understanding of America's shared heritage and recognize our collective responsibility to improve the bonds between all nations. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet you wherever you may be on your journey towards a more diverse and inclusive society so that we can do the work together. All right, so let's get this panel started. I just want to let you know what the structure is going to be, those of you watching, those of you on the panel. But let's start with some individual questions, and then I'll open up the floor to each of you to maybe tag on to other people's answers. Maybe something has inspired you. And then after that, we'll have some loose questions that's going to be, whoever wants to answer those, just pull up, answer those questions. And then finally, we will end with some actionable tips that you might have for people who are trying to do similar work that you're doing. Tips, tricks, free game, recipes, anything. So whatever you're feeling. Okay, sound good?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Let's get it. All right, Joey, my first question comes to you. There are a lot of issues in the world. I might be the first person to say that. But people often need a lightning rod for those issues, a fall guy. Do you think that comedians catch too much heat, too little heat, or the right amount of heat for riskier jokes? And why or why not?
Wow, that's a big question for me to answer at noon on a Friday. Let's see. I think that our jobs as comedians is to like basically like to shine a light on weird things that are happening in the world and weird things that are happening in society, and just point out that that thing is unusual, that thing is weird. And I think that I think that sometimes, like as a comedian, you can lighten up like kind of uncomfortable truths that people maybe aren't ready to hear, and like I think that that's something that can like oftentimes cause comedians to be like a lightning rod if they, there's comedians that say stuff that's just racist or bad or misogynistic or whatever that like deservedly get kind of that lightning rod. But then I feel like there are comedians that are just like doing jokes about things that are true, but people maybe aren't quite ready for yet. So I'd say like Hari Kondabolu, a lot of his stuff around like Apu from The Simpsons and wanting the Apu character to change and to be less offensive. Like I think that that's a really good example of something where like, anybody who is aware that racism is a thing was like, yeah, that character's kind of racist. But then there were people that were like, but I love The Simpsons. So it's like, I think that that's an example of like, Hari pointing out a true thing and becoming a lightning rod because it was like a thing people didn't want to deal with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're saying is there's different types of lightning. And that lightning comes from this nostalgic sort of, no, you can't take away my childhood. Or it might come from justifiably going after someone who said something racist or misogynist. And yeah, I love that. Does anyone else have a response?
Yeah, I like to think of it in a couple of different ways. Like, as a comedian and activist, I live in, two worlds, and people like often ask me like, how do you make fun of like police brutality or whatever? And like, I live in a world where like, as a comedian, everything is funny or nothing is. We shouldn't take topics off the table, but then also, should you be the one to deliver this message, right? Like, yeah, you could say everything, but should you? Because my joke about race coming out of my mouth sounds like one thing versus the same exact words coming out of someone else's mouth. So I think sometimes we, ought to also consider like, who is delivering this message, right? Like, should it be said? Can it be said by somebody else? Is this even... is it controversial or is it just, racist? Is it controversial or is it just sexist? And also, maybe should I pass the mic?
I love that.
Right.
Mike, Zara?
Yeah, I come at it from a storytelling perspective because I feel like sometimes that is the easiest way to identify your positionality. I think a lot of times people are asking questions that are a craft question, because one way to think about it is, who's the underdog? If we're celebrating making fun of a group of folks that have already been silenced and erased, is that useful? Is that really the position of the underdog? Is that good writing? So for me, it's not good writing. And all the rules of good writing, I feel like, help us navigate these questions because they're thousands of years old when it comes to like political relationships and power dynamics.
Absolutely. I love that. It's like you're choosing what position you're in, and are you punching up or... Yeah. Mike?
Yeah. Everybody said everything that I would have said already. So, I mean, next question, I'm jumping in. Next question.
You got this. You got this, man. I believe in you. You got this.
How about I shoot a question to you then, Mike?
Okay. Come
on.
So,
I met you first on social media and then in real life.
Yeah.
So, social media is clearly built in a way where people are kind of just lobbing different thoughts around, and then people make a decision what thoughts get to rise to the surface. But sometimes nuance, nuance ends up dying there and people's subjectivity reigns. Do you find it easier or harder to joke on social media? Was there a time period that it was easier? Is it hard? Like, what is your take on social media?
I think for me, comedy and social media changed because before I really like took my dive into stand-up, I was already doing a little bit of social media stuff and I had like a following. And I think I was just way more reckless. Like I was just tweeting whatever I wanted to tweet. Some of the things were funny, but they weren't like well-crafted jokes. And then as time started going on, especially like the time we're in now with everything going on, everybody is on social media. So I think there's just like this echo chamber of jokes and also rants and things that we think are wrong with the world. For me, it's just not my preferred medium of doing comedy anymore. But I do know that there's like this uptick with TikTok, reels and a lot of videos and things like that, which I think is good. But for me, it's just like social media isn't where I'm at too much. But feel free to follow me at Yo Mike Brown because every so often it might be a joke.
Yeah, he doesn't tweet much, but everything he tweets is gold.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the opposite of Mike, though, right? I feel like the social media world is just reflective. It's hyper reflective of trends, right? And so, like, very often I look at, Facebook's got that little like time hop feature or whatever. And like he says, there's some stuff I said, at this point now, 10 years ago, that like, yeah, that was funny, but that also wasn't a well-crafted joke. And that's not representative of where I am now. And I think the issue with social media is the immediacy of the critique. It is the volume at which it can be, right? But people are still saying, like, without social media, people were still saying those things about someone's art. You just didn't hear it or whatever, right? So in a way, I think it's the same. It's just you hear it now. And when people used to be offensive, right? Like it wasn't maybe at the time, but now it is. When people used to be offensive, your critique didn't matter. It doesn't sink somebody.
Yeah.
So I think people are just a little too like, oh, are you critiquing me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. And now you hear it directly. That's actually probably good for you.
Yeah, the walls and barriers have come down in a very unique way where like your audience, especially in a reactive space like social media, like that response is right there. Like you can't really escape it. And like you said, people were saying wild things all the way through the 2000s, way before that. And there wasn't something in place for the people to really organize to make their voice and their argument about why something made them feel some way heard. So,
I don't think cancel culture is new. We had that before. It just didn't happen as fast.
Yeah.
I feel a need to add to this landscape in this conversation about social media with some of my Persian identity and a look at ulterior motives and agendas and a dose of conspiracy, just a smidge.
Oh yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Do your research.
No, I never that would be hypothetical to 2021 conspiracy theory. You can't research. That ruins it.
Yeah.
These are from my gut. Here's what I got. The thing is, there are bots. There's bots. There's also I feel like in the world of social media, for us to take anything as representative of actual trend, we need transparency. We need to be able to see like all the checks and balances that existed in news information with journalism are gone, and we don't know
you can know what's a good source and what's not a good source. Now, the reason why people don't is because in the past, we took everything as an official source because there weren't so many avenues. But if you're an informed person, you know what's a legitimate critique and what's not,
Listen, I know the earth is flat, number one. And
Oh, thank God.
I know where to go to get confirmation on that. So I'm good on the sources.
Confirmation.
I think
A crazy guy on YouTube. That's the person to get confirmation. Guy with a beard.
when it comes to cancel culture, I feel like I look at kind of the meta theater of Twitter. For me to go to Twitter as a source of cancel culture, I need to know what's the difference between thoughtful critical analysis and what folks, myself included, wrote at 3 o'clock in the morning on the bathroom on the john. Like, you know, there has to be some level of curation for me to take it seriously, because some of the stuff that's happened in the past is bots actually did take over and set trends on behalf of all social justice. You know, and then there was also just the cancel culture wave of I think like 2010, you know, that a lot of folks were like, is this what we think? I guess it's what we think. And I am not a huge fan of waves of reaction without critical analysis. I feel like that sets up a framing on sensitivity rather than on analysis.
Yeah, I'd love to just recenter it around difficult conversations, because comedy is a trial and error game. You hop on stage, you try a joke, it doesn't work, you try something new next time, and then we see if it works that time, and it's that sort of way. But social media, with comedians trying out new jokes, especially around jokes around marginalized communities, or trying to parse through some of these bigger phenomena they might not actually either have a full understanding of, or they're trying to find the comedic lane through it. Like when you try and tell a joke on social media, especially one that comes maybe from personal identity, but might not be what the masses are talking about or looking at it in that way, do you feel nervous about landing them?
100%.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about just how Twitter works and how social media works in terms of like a lot of these conversations. I feel like a lot of us exist inside of kind of our own, you know, our own echo chambers within Twitter, in that like there's like liberal Twitter, there's native Twitter, there's, you know, insert hashtag marginalized group Twitter, you know, there's video game Twitter, and etc. And like something that I've definitely experienced is like tweeting something like earlier this year, I just like had a friend make a meme that was called Antifa Garfield, that was the comic book cat Garfield, but if he was Antifa. And it's like, I had somebody do like a comic of it. I posted it on Twitter, and it was interesting to watch. Like it blew up in like liberal Twitter and comedy Twitter and Garfield Twitter with like zero criticism. And then it like got shared by people and started to blow up in like conservative Twitter, but like kind of an extreme level of like negative outcry of people being like, Garfield ain't no Antifa. And you know, it's like, I feel like there are a lot of those situations where it's like, oh, these are real people that genuinely have like a political disagreement with this thing that I posted. But then to Zara's point, there were definitely a lot of people where it's like, oh, this is like somebody with 0 followers and following 0 people that has no profile picture. And it's like, I don't think you're a real person. I think that you're there to like strike discord in this thing, you know, or strike divisiveness in this thing.
What you're saying is radical. You're saying that not everyone on social media is real, and I think that's insane.
Wait, am I canceled? Am I canceled now?
You might be.
Oh no!
We'll check for you. All right.
Oh, thanks.
No, that's interesting, because yeah, it's, you know, people contain multitudes, and on social media you may have a joke that is hitting all your intersected identities, oppressed identities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it might be interpreted by, you know, Black Twitter, Muslim Twitter, you know, African Twitter, like British Twitter, like it might be hit by all these different sides. But I wanted to go to actually Elsa. I have a question, because, you know, before we even get to putting it on social media, you need to be able to like make these jokes. And as a teacher for the Gold Comedy, was it Academy Institute?
It's the Gold Comedy School for Girls and Others. That's wonderful. The long name.
Wonderful. I mean, that's beautiful. I was just curious, like, how would you teach someone to navigate a difficult topic if you were to, you know?
Yeah. I have a story like exactly about that real quick. It was this was very early in the previous administration, and there was a girl. She was 13 or 14 in one of our first classes too. She says, I want to make a Trump joke. right? And I was like, okay, well, there's a lot of those going on right now. What do you want to say, right? What do you want to say about it? And she was like, I don't like him. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. A lot of people don't like him. What personally hits it for you, right? And she says, I don't like him because we had to go to the women's march and that was boring and my feet hurt all day. But I did get to yell the word pussy, right? And I was like, okay, boom, that's your joke, right? And like that joke works for her as a 14-year-old perfectly. So I says, flip it around. You actually like Donald Trump because of him, you got to yell pussy all day and not get in trouble, right? And then that's your joke. So and that's just a microcosm of like when I say like, ooh, this is a controversial joke or whatever, I tell my girls, write it from the perspective that only you can write it from. It's personal to me. So if that upsets you, oh well, that's me talking, right? Like, shit, it's not for you. If you find some common ground here, great. But I'm talking about a me experience. I told a joke one time about holding the my girlfriend's hand, and this guy walking past, and he grabbed her ass. And then like she wanted me to fight, and I was like, "Oh fuck no, I'm not fighting." And then like the whole joke ends up where I let him grab my ass just to like appease him, right? The whole crowd loses it. This lady in the back waits for the laugh to die down, and she says, "That's not funny." And so she waits for me after the show. You know how people like, you know, they want to talk to you, so they keep positioning themselves so that they can talk to you or whatever. She talks to me and she's like, that was offensive because this. And like the reasons why she says she don't like the joke is the exact point of the joke. It's not my fault she didn't catch it in a humorous way. And I don't care if that offended you. That's the shit that happened to me.
This goes, to what I was talking about, positionality. Comedy is subjective, right? So like, also like, you may have missed the point, and I think it goes to a larger point that sometimes when you're being told, "Hey, dog, you missed the point," they be like, "Oh, you calling me stupid?" I'm like, "Well, nah, but what you doing now, stupid?" So
maybe.
It's like she was getting the point, but it was like still whooshing. And you know what? It's not my fault to explain the joke for you. Clearly, everybody else got this. You know, it's kind of to like the Garfield thing. Like it was for the folks who got it.
Let's take a second for like a little bit of levity. Does anyone else have a story kind of like that, where they told a joke from their perspective about their identity or how they navigate the world, and it just went horribly wrong? Because
I got one.
Go.
It's already funny.
Oh yeah, I was in Harlem and I was doing this joke that I would do about the death of Mike Brown, right? And I would talk about basically the joke is in the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, I saw everything that happened, and I was just like totally woke and whatnot. But at the beginning of the day, I just saw my name trending on social media, and I thought that I made it. Like I thought people discovered my comedy, and so.
Congrats.
So I'm doing this joke, right? Everybody's like dying, whatever. And then this white woman in the crowd was just like, "You can't do that joke. That's not right. You can't."
Oh shit! I already did it.
Yeah, I was like, I already did it. And technically, I am the only Black comedian named Mike Brown to do this joke. This is a one of one. This is like I had to. One, I'm a Black comedian. I'm good. I have to talk about this on stage somehow. And how else can I talk about this other than that? So anyway, it just made me think of that. There you go.
No, I love that, because talk about a joke that only you can tell. You know, like you can tell that joke. And again, if I had a nickel for every time a white lady after a show told me I couldn't tell a joke, I could Scrooge McDuck dying in that, you know. So like it's difficult because, you know, again, subjectivity. Anyone else?
Oh, I have another one. I did another show, and a white woman said that I couldn't tell that joke, and then called the police and said I didn't have permits for joke telling. I'm just joking. I just had to get that.
Oh my god!
I was like, oh shit.
That's the most Karen thing ever. That's too Karen.
And
Also, I mean, good thing everybody on this panel, we've got our permits updated. We're all in good shape. We all got our permits up top. It was good.
Yeah. I
don't know.
Last week
This is why half the time Twitter feels just like the Karen comedy show. Who's gonna police who? Let's go. What do we got?
For real.
I got a story.
Go ahead.
This was, I think, just after the election. It was for the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of white liberals, looking to come together. And I had a joke about my adequate white man. I say, I own a white man by marriage. I'm very happy with him. He's adequate. Mm-hmm. Adequate white boys are like the golden retrievers of the doggy kingdom. And I go on and tell the joke that you should find on YouTube and click and like it. And everybody just clenched, and every person of color in the crowd was like holding back their laughter. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And all the white people were just scowling. And after the show, folks either came up to me and said, "Thank you so much. That was so important."
Yo!
That was so important.
Yo, in Staten Island, which I was wrong for being there. I was wrong for being black and Staten Island. That was the first issue. I should not have accepted that gig. And it was also like still in the black part of Staten Island, but it was wrong. I was wrong. But the crowd was pretty 50-50, black folk, white folk. The black folk did me a favor and all sat up front, right? And I'm actually scheduled to do like a half hour here, right? Yeah. And the white people are laughing at nothing. Booty holes clenched, tight. Clenched, tight. They're tight. Black folk in the front row dying. So I was just like, at some point, I was just like, I guess I'm just doing comedy for y'all, right? At the end, they pass the bucket around because I'm getting paid from the bookstore I'm at, and they're going to pass the bucket. I made straight $200 that night. They came up out of pocket, but nobody laughed, and they all came through and shook my hand and was like, "That was amazing. That was important." That was like, "Was it funny? What was wrong?" And it was funny because, like you said, the black folk was like, "This is great." But yeah.
Is that a kink? It has to be like, yo, I need to get roasted by people of color and then go home, say that's important, and be like, cool.
That's totally a kink.
It's like maybe like a white guilt thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's interesting to me is what part of that was important. You know what I mean? If you're saying that was important, was it? If it's important, then why were you scowling? Mm-hmm. You know, like that should be a moment where you sit back and you just kind of take it in, as opposed to throw down your experience of it so hard that other folks aren't comfortable laughing.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, that reception is the difference between policing and just, going, okay, that's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Just my version of that is no stand-up stories are coming to mind, but like I submitted a script to this like one executive. Like I grew up on the Tulalip Reservation in Washington. It was just like a script about growing up Native, growing up on a reservation, and the exec's note back on it was, "This is good, but it makes me feel bad." And it's just like some like white lady executive that was like, just like a story about Native stuff makes you feel bad. What?
I won't say the comedy club, but it's very broad in the way that this happened to me. I was, trying to get past, hired at this club or whatever. I won a residency. So I was there every Saturday and Sunday night, and I would do, the check spots for like a month, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, I would get, the owner would decide if he wanted me there or not, right? He sees my tape. He calls me. I'm on the phone with my ex-fiance. I got it on speaker because I'm like, yo, come listen, right? He sucks my dick for fucking whole 7 minutes, right? And at the end of it, he's like, how long have you been doing comedy? right? I said, like 3 years, right? He was like, wow, that's amazing. Don't tell anybody that. Also, maybe not so much black and gay stuff.
Sick.
Oh, so scrap my set.
Yeah.
You like me, but not less of me, right?
Yeah, I mean that's actually a perfect way, because that's the direction I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
Clearly, what we're hearing right now is that everybody here has had an experience where their comedy has been interpreted by someone who might not come from the same cultural background as them, and they will come through with very entitled critiques of your work. So I was curious about cultural barriers, because all of us navigate different, identities, but like, are there any cultural barriers that you feel like you have to navigate? Do you feel like a responsibility to represent your identity and your POV? And I wanted to start with Zara on this.
I almost quit comedy because the only cultural marker that anybody had when I was, starting out was terrorism, which is not a cultural marker. That's not a cultural marker. I mean, it's slowly becoming an American cultural marker, but it's not a real cultural marker. And
hip hop.
It put me in this position where, and like, I'm sure all of us have had this experience of like the component of educating and the burden of educating as comedians of color, and for marginalized backgrounds, the learning curve. If I wanted to talk about anything that was about my life that wasn't related to the news, then everyone needed me to first explain, about the news, my relationship to it, my opinion of terrorism, and then I was allowed to be myself. First I had to ambassador appropriately. And there's this really funny thing that happens, I'm curious about for other folks, where when it comes to like me just like being an authority on my story, sometimes the audience decides that I don't get that, and like, for example, I had a friend who said, "It's my birthday," up at the show, and no one responded until she explained that she was a Pakistani comedian and identified herself, and then they could place her, and then they were on board. What is this?
Yeah. Us going backwards.
What I ran into very early in comedy, and somebody shook me out of it within like my first year or two, right? I didn't actually want to write any jokes about being gay. My hair was much shorter. I had like a little box fade, like a little boozy fade. And so like my hair was much shorter, and for a quick brief moment I used to wear a shirt and tie on stage, right? And my friend was like, "How come you don't?" He was a much more successful comedian than me at the time, and he says, "How come you don't have any gay jokes?" He's like, "You're on stage for 10 whole minutes, you don't have any gay jokes." I was like, "I don't know, I don't really want to talk about it. I don't really want to feel like I have to educate anybody about it. I don't want to have to go through a whole thing." He was like, "Yeah, well," he's like, "You're obviously gay. You have to talk about it." And he was like, "I'm a big fat guy. If the big fat guy goes on stage for 10 minutes and doesn't talk about being a big fat guy, and everybody in the audience is gonna be like, how come the fat guy didn't talk about being fat?" Right? He's like, you gotta do it. He's like, "You don't gotta explain shit to anybody. Just talk about it like they understand it. Because guess the fuck what? They understand. People understand. And if they don't, then guess what? That's not who I'm talking to. And you'll see yourself out the door. My audience is my audience. My audience will find me the way I come, the way I am. I never went back to that club. He wanted me to switch up my comedy and hide that I'm new, but I'm funny right off the bat. Like I gotta like pay dues or whatever. Like, no, fuck that. I'm gonna go where I'm celebrated. And if that means my audience is smaller, then that means my audience is smaller. Yeah. But I gotta explain shit to people who get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanna tag on that and say, yeah, I feel like my like comedy path was kind of similar in that like I didn't really do jokes about Native stuff until like I'd been doing it for a couple of years, and part of it because like I didn't necessarily know how to tackle it in a way that like was like funny to me and didn't just make me, you know, deeply sad or upset or whatever, because, you know, Native stuff can get kind of depressing. And like, it wasn't until I started just like, you know, being open about Native stuff that I started to get stuff like just like non-natives who are grown adults asking me questions like if I was born in a teepee and stuff, that I was like, oh, that's the thing I can make fun of. It's like, you know, it's hard to make, you know, jokes about like, you know, like Dapple and stuff like that. But it's like, it's easy to roast the dude that has asked friends of mine if they have magic powers. Like, you know, and I think that like, it's sort of like the fact that people don't know very much about Native American people, like, I use that as a weapon in my comedy. And it's like, the jokes are about people not knowing this stuff. But like, it is something that like took me a little while to figure out. And I think that like, exactly like you were saying, it's like, I've definitely been in spaces. I've had meetings with like producers and execs and agents and managers that have spent the whole meeting asking me like how I say hello in my native language or other like weird stuff like that. And it's like, oh, like my takeaway from that is I don't want to work with that person. Like, you know, it's like you keep doing your thing, and it's like, you know, F the people that are jerks, you know?
Yeah. I've pitched stuff about police violence to producers, execs, all these people. And one dude straight up told me, yo, police violence is not in. I'm like, nigga, it's not fucking pomegranate. It's not in. Like, bro, it's not Apple season, not PFL. It's police brutality. This is year round for me. And it
right.
That we live on different continuums of awareness.
Yeah. And it's like, oh,
I was like, what are you talking about?
You gotta wait for the fall season for police brutality.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, like, and the takeaway is like, oh, fuck that guy. Like,
oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
And my man is still out here cooking. I'm like, you get to make decisions? Like, come on, man.
It's like real talk. It's like meetings like that. It's like I don't light that person up publicly on social media, but I text all of my like writer, like actor, director friends, and I'm just like, yo, don't do shit with this company.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, we are coming to the close of our conversation, but before we leave, because I'm having too much fun right now. Before we leave, I wanted to ask if you had any pieces of advice that you wanted to share for people who are trying to navigate sensitive topics comedically in the future. Any resources, tips, tricks, anything? And we'll start with Mike.
All right. It depends on the topic that you're going to talk about. I always think that if you're doing comedy, you should contribute to the conversation. So I think be unique, not just for unique sake, but really what is your take on that topic? Know what it's going to be, and then have a ball. I think that, I kind of like taking the sensitive topics and trying to make it in a way that's I don't want to say palatable, just like really funny for any audience. And if they hear it, everybody can get a little something for a minute. But yeah, just be well versed in your shit and be true to what you do.
Yeah, appreciate that. Let's go to Joey next.
And follow me for anything else.
Follow him on Twitter. My tip is follow at Yo Mike Brown. He doesn't tweet much, but when he does, it's real good. It's just like, whoa, that's great. Yeah, for me, I think this is definitely like the super comedy nerd note of it. But it's like, I think just like know what you want to say with the joke that you're making. Like understand what, like, it's like have like a clear satirical point, like understand like it's like something that I talk about a lot, like in jobs or in scripts or like, just in live comedy and stuff like that. If I'm coming up with a joke, if I'm working with somebody to develop a joke, I'm just like, okay, yeah, what is this joke about? Like, and I think that the more that you can like zone in on like the specific thing that the joke is about and like make it specific, I think it's easier to make it more palpable for people, especially if it's coming from a personal space. And it's just like, oh, this is like a very specific commentary from you about this weird societal thing, or like this MCU movie, or like whatever,
Specificity. Love it. Let's go to Elsa.
Yeah. My tip, trick, whatever, is to actually people who maybe like are do booking or casting or whatever. There's absolutely no reason in 2020, 2021 where I still see all white lineups or all male lineups. Like, that's hella ridiculous. like if diversity is what you're going for, you need to prioritize that in your booking practices. My show that I used to run, Affirmative Laughter, used to lampoon that exactly. I'd have like all Black women or all Muslims and one white guy, you know, just to illustrate like how weird that is, right? Like, we live in New York City, and for that to that used to happen to me in Virginia. And then I moved here to New York, and I thought that wasn't going to be a thing anymore, that I was going to be the only Black person on the show. But it keeps happening. And I will tell you on the mic at your show that it's super fucking weird to just have me, the only Black person here. You should figure out something different with your booking. So prioritize that. Like, look for those, like, we're here. We're not here.
Yeah.
It's a Google search if you're that fucking pressed. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
No, it is do the work.
And then the Twitter for more. And then the Twitter for more.
And last but not least, Zara.
I, as an extroverted processor, have tips for the other extroverts suffering through pandemic. Volume. Just keep going out there, keep writing on stage. For me, I was never the kind of writer or comic who could sit down at my desk, craft it, go try it, make notes, go back. I had to find what it was that was hitting me on stage in relationship with a crowd. And that was really hard to navigate because I would let the crowd edit a lot of my work based off of what they liked or didn't like, which, you know, really messes you up as an early comic, right? And doesn't really allow you to figure out what your voice is. So remember that the audience works for you. They're there to let you know what's working and what's not, but it's up to you how you interpret that and how you apply it. Just because a joke gets laughs doesn't mean that it's done. And just because you're meandering on stage and they're not laughing doesn't mean that you're not allowed to just soak up time, stand up there, figure out what it is you want to say, let the tension linger. Tension is your friend.
I love that. I mean, I love that everyone is talking about things from a very
trust yourself. That's what I'm getting from that. Trust yourself.
Exactly. Trust yourself. Well, everyone, thank you so much. I have one final question for everybody. It is the title of this. We're going to say it all at once, but it's the title of this session. Is diversity funny? I'm going to count down from 3, and then everyone is going to give their response at the same time, and then we will fight for the last few minutes of this. Is diversity funny? 3, 2, 1.
Sure. Absolutely.
Of course.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Here's the thing. Comedy is funny because we're hearing someone else's perspective. More perspectives means more funny, more opportunities to hear from other people. And if we keep getting the same brand of folks over and over, you know, if you live in New York, sometimes it blows my mind. In New York City, a white person can go a full fucking week without having another conversation with another person of another race. It's crazy. So my 10 minutes on stage might be the only time you hear authenticity from a Black person, from a woman, from a queer. So I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
So of course it's funny.
Yeah, some people really do live like they live in Friends. Like they don't have no Black friends walking around. It's pretty wild.
I don't know how that happens.
It's so diverse.
It's an intentional choice. It has to be an intentional choice.
Wait, did anyone say no?
Yeah, I actually. Okay, so I said no with the slightest caveat. Oh no, don't cancel me. No.
Turn his camera off.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, mute. Yeah. Oh no. So I don't want to say that like everything that was said. Yes. I don't think that diversity is funny so much as unique points of view are funny. And I think that like exactly what you said, like, yeah, it's like I'll meet folks and like I'll do shows and people will tell me like, you're the first Native person I've ever met. And it's like, one, don't tell me that. That does not make you look good. Yeah. But it's sort of like, yeah, I think that it's like unique points of view are funny. And oftentimes unique points of view come from members of marginalized communities. And it's like, so it's like one, But diversity leads to a unique point of view, and that unique point of view is funny as opposed to diversity just being funny, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
He put it really short, and he took all the black out of it, but
oh no, sorry.
No. Sometimes we just need like a no seasoning version.
I mean, along the lines of no seasoning, like when is fascism funny? You know what I mean? Like, and my favorite token white man, Michael Pollan, I feel like would be on the side of diversity. You know, I mean, it's just always good.
Yeah, because what's the opposite?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everybody just agreeing with each other, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And okay, you said fascism isn't funny, but like that Four Seasons total landscaping thing was pretty funny.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I will say yesterday was a little slow and boring. I didn't quite know what to do with myself on Twitter. You know, like I kept waiting for a thing to happen, and it never did, and like it was uncomfortable how comfortable that was.
Yeah, like
is 2021 the year we get used to boring again? Is that what?
Yeah.
You know how like when you're sick, your sinuses like they feel like insane. You're like, wow, I didn't appreciate the moments where I had clear sinuses. That's what right now feels like.
Yeah, I just want to go for the record. I was so bored on Twitter yesterday that I spent 5 minutes looking at a Twitter account that's just at First Cat on Twitter that I think is the Twitter account where Mike Pence is going to announce the name of his cat he's going to, or not Mike Pence, Joe Biden is going to announce the name of the cat he's going to adopt. So I was just like filled with attention at this Twitter account being like, what's the first cat's name going to be? And it's like, oh, that's where 2021 is right now. And I don't hate that.
I feel you. Well,
it felt good not to go to sleep and to wake up and not wonder if our president has accidentally tweeted us into a war. You know,
yeah.
Big facts. Big facts. Well, listen, Mike, Zara, Elsa, Joey, thank you so much for coming through and talking to us about all of this. You have been watching, those y'all at home, Is Diversity Funny? We had a rousing answer. Some people said no. However, this is still part of the
sorry.
Y'all see his Twitter? Cancel.
Yeah. Oh no.
Joey's got to be the diverse voice. He's got to be the diverse voice in the crowd. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can follow him on Parler at. This has been part of the Non-Obvious Beyond Diversity Summit. Thank you so much to our panelists. You can find them at their website, social media handles that popped up on screen. Scroll back, run up those views on this video. Thank you so much for watching, and to check out all of these other topics that we're covering here from different genres, geographies, genders, go to www.nonobviousdiversity.com and use that little hashtag non-obvious-diversity. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been your moderator, Mamoudou N'Diaye. Please follow Yo Mike Brown on Twitter. Bye.